So, quick introduction then. Wonderful Cuan Brown from SEFE. Cuan, do you want to talk a little bit about SEFE, what it is, what it does, a bit about its history, and also your role in it?
Yeah, so what I thought I'd do is just kick off with the elephant in the room. Obviously, pre-SEFE, we were Gazprom Marketing and Trading. Obviously, as some of you have already identified, the war had a part to play in that. And about 2 years ago, the German government took ownership of the whole Gazprom Group, and we were rebranded as SEFE. SEFE stands for Securing Energy for Europe, and that's kind of the embodiment of what we are attempting to do as an organization, and ensuring that we can provide and secure energy supplies for our customers and for Europe as a location as well. My role is the EVP of Trading IT, and what that actually means is that I am responsible for the software and people and tools that support our trading business. And just to kind of give you some further background, SEFE is actually made up of multiple businesses. We have our trading arm that's centered in or based in London. We also have a sales business that's spread across Europe, primarily in Kassel and Manchester. And then we also have an infrastructure storage business that's primarily based in Germany as well.
Thank you. And for those of you who don't know me, I'm Ian Murray, and I'm the CEO and founder of Digitaire, and we work in the space quite extensively, so we're a software and engineering house around sort of data. A lot of our work's data, and our focus is very much on the trading life cycle. So we work in energy commodities trading and FS extensively, and I've got some colleagues here as well. So this fireside chat, imagine little fire here. There's a tumbler of whiskey for Cuan, who's very fond of whiskey, and we have the chance to go back a little bit to the start of our journey together, but also the business. So could you tell us a little bit about the original aims of the business, what you were trying to do, and maybe later on some of the headwinds you experienced?
Yeah, so I think there's probably two distinct life cycles in the organization's history. So we were set up all the way back in year 2000 in Kingston, and effectively a route to market for Russian gas into Europe as a trading and optimization organization. And that was largely the case up until about 2014. And around then, the supply gas that was being provided through Gazprom Export kind of dried up as they took ownership of those types of elements. So the organization had to repivot and turn into an optimization and vertical integration organization that was focusing on optimizing the available supply that we or demand that we receive from our customers. So as I mentioned to you, we have a sales organization. They have between 50 and 70,000 customers across both the UK and Europe, and obviously that drives demand that the trading business can go and work on. So over the course of that period, obviously, I think everyone would probably reflect on this. You know, you could start trading, and all you really needed was a whole lot of data, more data than anyone else, and you could be relatively competitive. And I think around about 2014, 2015, as we moved into more prop-style trading and more optimization on what we originally had, because obviously we don't have assets, we had to focus on more value-add services. So the investment in technology and the tools changed dramatically at that point in time. That's also about the time that we engaged. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But I think from 2015 onwards, there's been a kind of a revolution in the energy trading world. Obviously, it's increased dramatically over the last 3 to 4 years with the onset of digitization and automated trading, and that's put significant demands on the IT tools and systems that we have. And everyone always thinks about execution, and I've got some of our team here hiding in the back. They focus on all of our execution bits. But the challenge from an IT department is that we have to focus on the whole end-to-end life cycle. And if you speed up execution, you have to speed up everything else. So you need a massive investment in the entire life cycle.
Cool. So dig into those challenges you had, and also what were the building blocks of the solution to those problems?
So I'll take a second there. Apologies for everyone down on the other side. I'm kind of staring at Ian and try to glance across
Not
as well.
surprised.
Yeah, very beautiful face. I think the challenge is, as the market changed and as the behaviors of the market changed, what we started to see is significant upticks in data volumes. The business were demanding more data, significantly more intelligent data to make it more intelligent demands. In the past, just having access to data was a competitive advantage. And what's happened is you've kind of walked down the stack. Having the data was no longer a competitive advantage. What you now needed is you needed to have the data, and you needed to be able to perform intelligent analysis with it. You also needed to get that data out a lot faster. And what we are seeing is the behavior in the business and the industry and the exchanges was driving significantly faster execution. As a result, what we were seeing is significant demands on the execution front end, the trade capture elements, and then what we were seeing is massive explosions in data volumes. At the same time, if you think about how we were born, and probably for a lot of you who work in traditional trading organizations, what you probably also would have had is you would have had an estate that was largely designed around screen-based trading. And we're talking about traders, doing 10, 50, 20, maybe 100 trades a day, and you've got a desk, so you wouldn't peak at more than 5, 6, maybe 1,000 trades a day. And suddenly those volumes were starting to turn into 1,000, 2,000, 5,000, 10,000. Orders were increasing from 3,000 orders, 20,000 orders, 70,000 orders, 100,000 orders a day. And then all the demands around that were also starting to increase as well. So what you were starting to see is the entire landscape was effectively, and the example I use is that we're driving a Ford Fiesta, and the business were hoping that we could go on the Autobahn and do 300 kilometers an hour, and that clearly wasn't the case. So data volumes, the performance associated with that, and then dealing with an aged estate that wasn't designed for what we were attempting to use it for.
Okay, thanks. So digging into then some of the components of that, we talked about the risk management side of it, also the pricing side of it, which seemed to be integral to it. I know we did some work on that. Maybe you could expand on it?
Yeah, but before we talk about that, I think you asked about the journey. So part of our journey is that, SEFE invested significantly and still continue to invest significantly in our digitization or execution and decision making. I think that's the right idea. I think the future energy trading world where you have traders clicking buttons, I think in the next few years those opportunities are gone. And we had, as a result, a significant uptick in volumes of activities that were flowing down into our middle and back office. Now, the very first thing that we focused on and worked on with you guys all the way back in 2014 was around curve management, around price management, and making sure that we had near real-time curves that were collected in a sensible manner, they were validated, and they were distributed to our downstream systems in a completely automated fashion. And then we made it available to all the analysts so they could make trading decisions faster, and then also some of the tools that started to be built that supported the digitization. What we then have is a wave of activity occurring, flowing through our ETRMs, and on top of that, we then had the scenario around situations with high volatility. Obviously, pre-war, we had, I think it was around October 21? I can't remember the exact date, when we had massive spikes in the energy prices because of volatility, and then we moved into the Ukraine war. And what materially happened from an operational perspective is that you're paying 10, 15 times the same amount of money, or the same 15 times the money for the same molecule of gas, which means that you had significant pressure on your cash flow, which means that from a risk management perspective, you had to be on your game. Now, fortunately, we invested in some of our market risk management tooling with Digitaire, and all the way back in 2014. For everyone to kind of set the scene on what that means is that we built out a high-performance compute grid with all our market risk models. That ran on-premise, so we were largely on-premise until only probably 4 years ago. And that ran a lot of our kind of quantitative models, a lot of our credit and risk models, and that was running kind of once a day. We upgraded that and migrated that recently into the cloud. But when, for instance, the Ukraine war came along, and I know everyone was struggling with this, those types of models were being run almost daily, hourly, every couple of minutes, and we were scaling up to be able to provide that visibility to the risk team, to the trading desks, so they understood kind of exactly what we were exposed to and how to materially mitigate that. And those are kind of the two real key components that helped us, amongst a whole host of other things during that period, to make sure that we were on top of the situation and we can make intelligent decisions, obviously whilst large amounts of money were being thrown around as well.
And I believe you were making quite a bit of money at that point as well.
No comment.
So one of the figures you gave me was that you were making a turn on a molecule of gas between 14 and 18 times. Is that a correct figure?
This is a hard one. I think, so we've tried to explain what we do as an organization, and one of the things that we've kind of tried to figure out is how many times for a specific tenor period, etc., we will trade a specific molecule of gas. And I think the number that we came up with, and I believe that some independent reports have come up with numbers, certainly on TTF, etc., is that those molecules of gas can be traded up to 18 times. We've probably seen, certainly from our perspective, north of 10, which is a fascinating way to think of it, because obviously each time you have a decision point and you've got data behind that, that's been automated, it's flown through to our models, flown through to our auto execution systems, and then made trading decisions around that to be able to buy and sell exactly those commodities.
My only regret is we didn't do a kind of ROI-based contract with you. But what is it about those two platforms? So the first one was ARC and the other one was MRM that supported that growth and the way we work together?
So I think there's two things that certainly helped SEFE. And I'll kind of split it up into the kind of the technology component and then also the people component, because there is no substitute for good engineering. The reality is, whilst we can throw things up and we can support our trading teams and build components, the reality is a well-engineered piece of software will carry on and stand the test of time. Both ARC and MRM had that baked into it from the beginning, and thank you to Digi and the team that came along. We had some solid engineers, and I'm an engineer by trade, and it's something I'm quite passionate about, and I'll talk about it quite often with my teams. Good engineering is going to help you, and I appreciate we're in this day and age where PPAs and renewables and a whole host of things are coming through, forcing us to develop and turn around solutions really quickly. But the reality is, if you want that to be a lasting solution, you need good engineers. So the people that you brought along was one component of it. The other element that I think you helped, certainly SEFE, and still lives on today. We moved from, and we were largely an agile house, but you brought good practices and agile methodology, Scrum methodology, that actually have stayed the test of time and still are being implemented at SEFE, and you taught us a lot in that space. But I think just going back to the products, I think first of all, ARC is a curve management repository, and one of the key components that was baked into it was the team thought about and invested in performance and volume. And what's happened is that application has managed to scale with the increases of volumes of data, performance, etc. And in the 10 plus years that we've had it running, we've never ever had a performance issue. When the rest of my network and the rest of my landscape is now struggling massively with performance and volume, that's one of the real success factors. And then I think on the risk management tooling, it was built in a componentized way that allowed us to plug in our own models, extend it, and build on top of it. But what was even more important is that we developed this capability, and I know there's some people in the room that know it intimately, have worked on it here as well. But the reality is that that tooling was quite easy to migrate into the cloud, and as a result has benefited from the scale up and scale horizontally and vertically from the cloud, which has then meant that we've continued to see business value out of it. And I'll go back to the engineering element. So Cheers for that.
We keep talking about that, but I like that. But that's so great. I'd love to hear the success it's helped to support the business in. Looking to the wider landscape now, you've got, if you like, digital trading as we now know it, wasn't really on the cards when we first started that journey, and you guys have done a great job of maximizing value from it. And you're now building out a more real-time environment, but you've got, if you like, a bit of an old-style ETRM, as many organizations do have. How is that all fitting together, and what are you envisaging?
So a few years ago, and the Digi team were instrumental in helping us identify this. What we started to see was not just our order behavior changing, but we also measured all the orders on all the exchanges that we were able to capture, and we saw massive spikes in that. And what we then looked at was what the implications would be for our trading estate. And it became very apparent that the traditional ETRM, golden source of the truth, the heart of any trading organization, isn't the future. The reality is that kind of hub-spoke model isn't the future, because the non-functional requirements, especially in power, intraday power, short-term, etc., were driving behaviors that those ETRMs were not designed for. Some of these things have been designed all the way back in the 90s, right? So what we imagined was what we call trading vNext. And the premise is simple, is essentially a data backbone through the middle of the SEFE trading landscape that decouples all of the trading components, including the ETRMs, to allow the data to flow through our network in near real time, but also send it to the components or the services that need it as soon as possible. So for instance, an algo trading platform is quite happy to take raw data straight from an exchange, but your risk management tooling and your SAP reporting will need a number of revisions of that data set over time. So we also envisioned that when data entered the network, it would be raw, unusable by a lot of systems, but over time, the value of the data, the quality of the data will improve and will be delivered to the system that needed it at the right point in time. And then by the end of the day, you get to your kind of traditional end of day services. By that stage, you have kind of your formalized data set used for your P&L, financial reporting, etc. So that's the vision that we came up. We called it Trading vNext, which has caused no end of confusion in my organization. So that's an IT thing. I'll hold my hand up to that one. But what's been good is that journey has started. We are partway through it, and it's not complete at the moment. But there are a number of projects that are all contributing to that to help move the organization to a position where we can be near real time on our decision making and our execution, and then also start thinking about the other elements that play into the deal life cycle. So we have people from our energy transition team here. SEFE is investing significantly in new energy forms, hydrogen, etc. And part of those are a set of non-functionals that are dropping out of the market that are making us rethink how we do things. When you have to make a decision about a trade, gather the information, execute the trade, optimize it, and then dispatch in under 15 minutes, that's a world away from where we were 10 years ago.
And the stuff you're working on in that sort of more real-time environment with a more modular sort of componentized approach, love it. The stuff we're doing together, how's that contributing to that overall vision?
So at the moment, the tooling that we already have, the pricing tooling and the risk management tooling are still usable in the existing ecosystem, using obviously the data backbone for all of our information. But then we also now starting to look like everyone else, use that capability that provides near real-time data to the trading team so that they can start seeing their data, insta positions, exposure management, and then also flowing that into other decision-making tooling, your quant models that then flow back into the signal farms that our Digi team are building to then be able to re-execute and make hopefully more profits out of it.
What do you think is the kind of single toughest challenge going forward for, in a sense, you as an organization, but from a trading perspective, P&L perspective?
Well, the audience gave me quite a few of the answers already, but I mean, there's a lot. I think in technology, I think, the technology generally is not the problem. I think everyone will probably admit that getting the right people in the right place is probably our biggest single problem. Other than that, I think the challenges that we face is that as an industry, I would probably argue that the actual industry isn't 100% set up for digitization. If you look at our interfaces into exchanges and into TSOs, etc., not all of them are designed to meet the scale of the underlying assets that are starting to come online, the response time that you need from batteries and PVs, etc. I would say that probably the industry needs to spend some time moving there. And a lot of the challenges that myself and the teams deal with is integrating with those components and trying to ensure that they are successful. Because, I mean, the whole premise of this talk is how we've automated everything. Now, you can automate as much as you want internally within your network, but as the moment you step out, if that's not working successfully, then it all collapses in a heap, right? So I think that's probably the biggest challenge that we're facing. And I think the industry needs to move. I think a lot of the vendors need to move. And I think it will take some time, but there are some really good leaps and some good progress happening at the moment.
As you know, our mantra internally is build for change. So it sounds like there's a lot of that going on and more in the future, which is good. Let's pick up some questions, especially the first one. I like this one. As an ex-Russian organization, which probably upset the Russians, who knows? How much extra diligence around security have you had to deploy?
So it's a fair question. The reality is that as an organization, we were quite a small target. We were almost irrelevant because the reality is we were just a route to market, and we've obviously invested in changing the organization for people that are not aware. We've gone through a restructure over the last 2 years, which has created new functions. And then also within IT and the wider, I'm one of 4 IT functions. We've obviously invested a lot in cybersecurity. And I think the challenge is that's not a problem that has only appeared because we're ex-Russian. That was there before, and it's going to be here afterwards. And obviously everyone is grappling with that problem at the moment. I think the challenge for a trading business is how pragmatic can we be, how flexible can we be, and how far do you go, because obviously we can be zero trust, secure by default, but then operationally are we going to deliver any value? And that's the challenge. It's always a kind of a way off between the two of them.
Yeah, never goes away, unfortunately. So we've got 3 more questions here and only 2 minutes. So I want to combine them into one answer. So how are you investing in data to support? You touched on some of that stuff. Also, a little bit about the tools at the bottom of ETRM. And Gen AI, if you can slot that in there too.
So I'll kind of talk very briefly about data into our ETRMs. The ETRMs, we are spending a significant amount of time of decoupling our ETRMs out of the kind of the deal life cycle, such that the ETRM is a time-based blocker for other tools. I mean, that's fundamentally what we're doing. It doesn't mean that we are removing the ETRM. It still plays a pivotal role in our organization. It's still providing and owning all of the risk management. But what we've done is invest in tools around the sides of ETRM to take on activities around trade validation, reporting, regulatory reporting, etc. So the ETRM does what it needs to do, but then some of the short-term activity, some of the decision-making activity that potentially would have happened in an end of day, as part of your end of day in the ETRM, we've decoupled that, pulled it out so that the ETRM can carry on doing that, but we can focus on supporting the business needs to trade around assets that have very specific non-functional requirements. So for instance, a battery schedule that updates every minute will need trades every minute, will need optimization every minute, and need potentially asset dispatching every 1 to 5 minutes. If you were using a traditional ETRM, it couldn't cope with that. So we're investing heavily in trying to remove that kind of activity. But by the end of the day, that information will be in the ETRM, so your standard deal lifecycle components can still happen.
Thank you.